Right, so we're going to draw a little graph, and along the bottom axis we're going to have time, and I've put the year 2015 already on there. Then we're going to put a little dot to mark the energy use in 2015, and that's about 16 squares up, and that corresponds to 100% of 2015's energy use or consumption. Next, I'm going to put in 5 decades. The reason for that is that's how long, 50 years, until we believe oil will run out at this stage. So each decade is going to be 4 squares. So 4 squares apart. The first one's 2025, 2035 is a decade, 2045, so on until 2065. I'm also going to go back 10 years earlier and put 2005 in there as well. That's because that's when most of our renewable energy production started. So we'll have a look what happened in that decade. So 1 square is worth about 6%. So there was actually, by the end of 2015, renewables constituted about 2.1% of the energy supply. So that's about a third of the height of 1 square. And there was some energy of renewables around in 2005, about 0.7%. So over the decade from 2005 to 2015, it increased 1.5%. So now we're going to put in a line at the same level as the 2015 energy consumption, and we're going to project that forward to 5 decades at 2065, and we're also going to project forward our renewable energy construction over the decade from 2005 to 2015 all the way out to 2065. And so you can see that line marked there, and it ends up being just a tiny bit below 10% if we add the same amount as the average of between 2005 and 2015, which is 0.64 gigawatts per year. You can see it almost like the 2 squares up on at 2065 would be 12%. So the line has to come in just a bit below that to be just under 10%. So you can see then that we're going to need a number of multiples of that amount of energy if we're to get our renewable supply up to 100%. So I've put in a number of little markers just to indicate increasing increments of the energy required. And so I'll put in a new projection line to indicate where we'd need to go if we were to linearly increase our energy supply between now and 2065 to achieve the same amount of energy consumption as what we had in 2015. And as you can see that I've marked there, it requires 12.5 times the rate of renewable installation, and that equates to about 7.95 gigawatts per year. Now, 7.95 gigawatts corresponds roughly to the amount of renewable energy that was built between 2000 and 2015. So what that means is all the energy that you saw built everywhere between 2000 and 2015, so all the things you saw up to 2015, panels on roofs, wind farms and that sort of thing, all that needs to be done in 1 year, every year, for the next 50 to replace our current fossil fuel usage. Now, doing all this stuff out to 2065, there's a problem with that. And that's, if we do that, that's when oil and gas will run out. And that means we'll have used up all the carbon in the oil and gas, because we'll have used up all the oil and gas, which means we'll have done too much climate change. So some figures show that we need to be finished using fossil fuels in about 25 years' time, so as not to have used up so much carbon that we will make too much damage via climate change. So now I'm going to redo the figures, assuming that we have a 25-year deadline instead of a 50-year deadline. So in simple terms, if you halve the amount of time you've got to do the job in, you've got to double the speed at which you do it. So now we're up to building renewables at 25 times the current rate, which corresponds to approximately 16 gigawatts per year. So 16 gigawatts is twice the renewable energy that was built between 2000 and 2015, and that now needs to be done in 1 year, every year, for the next 25. But there's a little bit of a problem even with all this. So I'm going to put the year 2000 on the graph, and then where we know that in 2000, or the energy use has increased roughly 25% since 2000. So from 2000 to 2015, energy use increased 25%. So my 2015 100% energy use was 16 squares up. So if I go 4 squares down and back in line with 2000 and start from there and then project through the 2015 energy use at 100%, then I can do a projection out into the future of our likely energy use if we keep increasing at the same rate as we did between 2000 and 2015. So if we keep our same 25-year deadline in 2040 and then work out what this increased energy projection will do to the rate we need to build our renewables, we can see that it increases up to, we need to be building 35 times the average rate we built between 2005 and 2015, which corresponds to 24 gigawatts per year. Now, as large as this task may seem, there's plenty of things I haven't considered that make the scenario even worse. One example is that as we go forward in time, we're still requiring, for instance, metals to be used in our daily lives. The grades we are able to extract or find metal ore deposits at is decreasing, and with each decrease in the grade, it requires exponentially more energy to extract the metal. So it's likely that projection up to 2040 is an underestimate, which would mean that we'd have to build renewables even faster. Another thing I haven't considered is that again, going forward into the future, or over from 2000 to 2015, we made energy efficiency improvements in our processes and industrial areas of our society. And as we go into the future, we're going to continue to try and do that again as well. But the problem is that we're increasing, sort of reducing rates of return on our improvements because we're coming up against theoretical limits. So the improvements we're not likely to make over the next, say, 15 years won't be as strong as the ones that we made over the last 15. Finally, as all this stuff that assumes that so far the renewables, when they come to dominate the grid or the whole energy system, that they would be just as efficient as they have been for when we put electricity into the grid. And renewables are really efficient at putting electricity into the grid because pretty much that's what comes straight out of the solar panel or the wind generator. And then when you transmit electricity, it's also very efficient. You lose very little. But as compared to when you start to try and do things in like pumped hydro storage or even the lithium batteries in your house or car, those don't have such high efficiencies. So it's unreasonable to assume this for the entire energy system. So if let's just say we use an assumption of when renewables dominate that they'll be 90% efficient, then that means we have to add 10% onto our target. So if we take that highest scenario, the 35 times 1, 10% of the 24 is 2.4 gig, so we're going to have to add that to the target. So that will bring it to, we need to produce on average 26.4 gigawatts per year. And further than that, it's unlikely that the grid would be 90% or the energy supply would be 90% efficient. We're more thinking 60 to 80%. So that requires even more rapid construction of renewables again on top of that. So where does that leave us? Well, any way you flip it, there's a lot of work to be done building renewables. Even in the best case scenario that we don't care about climate change and we're happy to run out and use oil and gas until 2065, we still need to be building renewables at 10 to 12 times the rate that we built them between 2005 and 2015. Now, I know some people will say, well, yeah, 2015 and 16, 17 and 18, the rates of building started to go up. And in fact, I think there's even in 2020, maybe, it's slated to have about 3 gigawatts of solar installed. Well, that's great. and let's hope in that same year, if we get 3 gigawatts of wind installed too, that's 6 gigawatts, and then we're almost on target. But that's the target for the most optimistic scenario of all. That's still well short of if you don't want to induce significant climate change, and then it's well short of if you want to keep doing things like having energy use, which sort of helps increase our quality of life. If you want to keep having the same trend in upward energy use to have the same increase in quality of life that we had between 2000 and 2015, well, the amount of energy or amount of renewables that we need to be installing is astronomical in comparison to anything we look like doing at the moment. So, as I said, it doesn't matter which way you look at it, we need to be building serious amounts of renewables.